What's up, deckheads? Welcome back to MTG with me. It's the Gainswalker. Today I'm going to do a tier list for you of the Mythic Rares and the new Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth set. It's been pretty fun to play. I haven't seen all of these in action because they're not standard legal. There are a lot of hurdles in trying to see these play and the different combinations that you would likely find them. But I do draft a lot, and so I have seen a good bit of these. So I'm just going to go over just the Mythic Rares. There's 22 of them, so good amount of Mythic Rares to talk about. And I'm just going to start from the top, and instead of just finding them here and then going to Mythic Spoiler, I'm just going to go left to right Mythic Spoiler, kind of make that a little bit more organized. This is, I think, the best website to use when you're looking at cards and trying to see what, a lot of people have a preference in terms of what kind of deck they want to build. Do they want to build tokens? Do they want to build aggro? Do you want to do a control deck? So this does a great job in sorting them, not only by mythic, rare, uncommon, and common, but also just by what colors you like to play with. So that to me is a really big value. There's some other websites out there that do a good job, but I think Mythic Spoiler is definitely one of the best ones. So check it out, mythicspoiler.com. I went ahead and made a maker tier list, so you can pull that up if ever you want to look at that. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Fairly new channel, free to play player. So give it a like, follow, and comment on the videos. Let's go ahead and start off with Gandalf the White. This is a 5-drop 4/5 with flash. You can cast legendary spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. The legendary permanent or an artifact entering or leaving the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger. It triggers an additional time. So that's kind of cool. It's kind of like, let's see, what was it? I can't quite remember the name of it, but there's a card that does that in standard right now. It's a high CMC, so it's not very favored, but the 5-drop flash definitely adds some value to it because I believe it is a 7-drop. So this one is good. Not a lot of people are playing artifacts, but it is flash is just amazing. If you don't know, you cast it at instant speed, so that's pretty good. Elish Norn is the card I was just thinking of, but it's like I said, a 7-drop. So kind of late to be doing that. This is kind of cool though because a lot of the cards with ETBs like that, you're going to get a lot more value if you can play them at instant speed. So I'm going to say this is at least an A tier, if not S. We're going to put it in S. All right, next one. Have not seen this card be played, not in like a pre-release or even in a draft or anything, but a 5-drop 9/9 seems good. Enters the battlefield with 9 stun counters on it. There's plenty of cards actually that remove up to 5 counters from permanents, and it's 2 colorless, 1 swamp, I forget the name, but remove 5, and a lot of people are doing that with that 5-drop saga that exiles a card on the first saga step. So they'll do that. It exiles a non-land permanent. Then at instant speed, they'll remove 5 before their turn to remove whatever you just played. And they'll keep doing that and just keep hitting you with whatever small board state that they have at the time, which I think is a pretty good strategy. So you could maybe do something like that for this. Whenever you draw a card during an opponent's turn, create a 1/1 blue tentacle creature token. Whenever a tentacle you control dies, untap up to 1 target Kraken, put a stun counter on it, and on up to 1 target non-land permanent. So that's cool. So it's got a lot of stun counters on it. So it's taking a while to become active and be able to swing with the 9/9. But the benefit is it's creating things that you're probably going to do. Blue draws all the time. It's creating a situation where you're going to put stun counters on other things. So that could be useful. I'm going to say C tier though. That's really, you need it to stay on the board for a really long time. It does a lot of cool stuff, but it's all kind of board state, and like you need to play things for this to be valuable. So I'm going to say that that's probably not good. That's a D tier. Witch King of Angmar. This is flying for 5/3. Whenever one or more creatures deal combat damage to you, each opponent sacrifices a creature that dealt combat damage this turn, and the ring tempts you. It's whenever one or more, so it's only one ring temp a turn. Discard a card, which is pumpable. Gains indestructible until end of turn, tap it. You already know, if you've seen my standard ranked matches, that is one of my favorite mechanics, because most people get that wrong. Whenever you discard a card, gains indestructible until end of turn, and tap it. Some people read that and they're like, oh, well, he already swung with that creature, so maybe I can remove it, and they waste removal just for you to discard a card. It get indestructible, tap, and play stuff from the graveyard. People commonly do that. I do it with Sarah Paragon, but there's definitely other combinations of ways to do that. That's pretty useful. 5-drop, 5/3 flyer with a whole bunch of extra. I'm going to say that's an A tier. Let's see. That is a different artwork. Oh, here it is. Do A tier for you there. Hugh and Entwood. This is a 5-drop sorcery. Sacrifice any number of lands. Reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of lands sacrificed this way. Choose any number of artifacts and or land cards revealed this way. Put all 9 land cards chosen this way onto the battlefield. Then put all land cards chosen this way onto the battlefield tapped. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I mean, maybe in Commander, if you had like an artifact, like a Commander deck, that would be useful. It does say lands, not basic lands, so you could get a lot of utility out of that. All the ETB lands that do extra stuff, plenty of other combinations. But as far as just playing it in draft, things like that, not good. Definitely good Commander though. Not a Commander, but in a Commander deck. I'm gonna say I'll go B tier. I mean, I don't think it's amazing, but if that's what your deck is revolved around, that would be a really good addition. So we'll put it in a B tier. Alright, next we've got Radagast the Brown. This is a 4-drop. Whenever Radagast the Brown or another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is that mana value of the creature. Reveal a creature that doesn't share a creature type with a creature you control. Put it in your hand, put the rest... Oh, so it's put it in your hand. I mean, that's kind of cool. You're going to be playing creatures anyway. So when you're playing creatures and drawing them to play them later, to keep doing that, there's a lot of value in that. You're going to burn through your deck really quick, but it says put the rest on the bottom of your library, so at least you're not pitching those cards. I'm going to say that's an S tier, because you find that in a draft and you play that card, because you're going to have, I would say, hopefully, at least 17 creatures. With mono green, you might even have more than that. And so you could just keep playing those creatures. Where X is meant to reveal a creature, so you can only reveal one. But there's still some value in that. Also, that 1-drop Scry 3, reveal top card. If it's a creature, put it in your hand. You could get a lot of value putting all that in. Just like an awesome mono green deck. That is an S tier. Alright, moving along. Dawn of New Age. This is one that when I saw this, I thought that this was going to be in standard. And I was like, finally, some draw for white. But it's a 2-drop ETB. Put a hope counter on it for each creature you control. At the beginning of your end step, remove a hope counter. If you do, draw a card. And then if it has no hope counters on it, sacrifice it and you gain 4 life. So the more creatures you have on the battlefield, the more draw you get, which is awesome. Even for mono white, very big token deck, that's definitely something that you want to see. But again, unfortunately, it is not a standard deck. This is absolutely something I would draft, that I would put in a Commander deck. It's at least A tier. I want to say S tier, but I'm a little biased. So I'm going to say that that's A tier. It does require a board state, so it's not amazing by itself. If you just play it by itself, you gain 4 life for 2, which is not that great. So I'm gonna say A tier because I think it's worth it. Because I mean, you need a board state. White uses a board state, so I want to say A tier. I want to put A tier, but I'm leaning towards B tier. I'm just barely putting in the A tier. All right, Storm of Saruman. I pulled this in my last draft. Check it out. The video is pretty cool. This is a 6-drop Ward 3. Whenever you cast your second spell, you copy it. That does include creature spells, just any spell. You can choose new targets for the copy, except it isn't a legendary. So the set has plenty of legendaries in it, which would make that a very bad mechanic. But because it is creating it as a non-legendary, that's even better. It also stays on the battlefield. I had Shadowfax with this, and Shadowfax says when it attacks, it's got haste. When it attacks, put a creature from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking with less power. So I would play like a 2-drop removal. There was like a leech card. It's 1 colorless, one blue, and it taps a creature down, and it stays tapped unless you can remove +1/+1 counters from it, which is not a lot of cards. I mean, the orc armies have those, but aside from that, it's not a lot that's going to be able to have counters removed from it. So that's pretty cool. Then I played Shadowfax. It would come in, and then a copy of Shadowfax would come in. You swing with both, you put 2 more creatures from your hand down, tapped and attacking, and it's just an incredible amount of value. So there was, I can't remember what it was, but there's another card for Boros that says when it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls with more power than it. So it is a legendary, but if you put that in and copy that, then you just remove 2 things. Very fun deck. Check out the video. But this card is nuts. It stays on the battlefield. It's got Ward 3, so it's not easy to remove. That's an S tier card. There's so much you can do with that in just the draft itself, let alone what people are going to build with Commander. So I'm going to say S tier. Let's check out the next one. Shadow of the Enemy. Very specific CMC, 6-drop, 3 swamp. Exile all creature cards from target player's graveyard. You can cast spells from among those cards for as long as they remain exiled, and mana of any type can be spent to cast them. That's really good. Bit of a late game. You have to be removing stuff already, but that's basically what blue and black do. They counter, they remove. Put that in a Grixis deck, so you're burning, you're countering, you're removing, and then come late game, you're playing all the stuff that you removed. I think that that's very powerful, but specific CMC, it requires a lot to happen. What if the other player is trying to do the same thing as you? It's not like if you and I are playing against each other and we both have a whole bunch of creatures we're trying to play. Then you're going to meet each other on the battlefield in the board state just trying to push past each other. If you're both doing this, you're both just waiting, and it's a very, very long game, and even at the end of it, you're not going to have much to play because you're both trying to burn board state. So that to me it's good for what it is, but I'm going to say that's a B tier. It's very specific. Let's see. Shadow of the Enemy, that's alt artwork. Here it is. Okay, we'll go B. Spiteful Banditry. This is X and 2 mountain ETB, deals X damage to each creature. That's kind of cool. Not quite like Bonfire of the Damned, but still. Whenever one or more creatures your opponent's control die, you may create a treasure token. Only triggers once each turn. Whenever one or more creatures your opponent's control die. Okay. I mean, it's good when you play it. It's got kind of a board wipe thing. You'll get a treasure token from that. And then from there forward, anytime you get rid of one of their creatures, you get another treasure token. There's some serious value in that. I'm going to say A tier. it's pretty specific, but I mean, it's an enchantment after, it's like a board wipe that turns into an enchantment. I like that. So, let's keep moving. Last March of the Ents. This is an 8-drop, can't be countered. Draw cards equal to the greatest toughness among creatures you control. Then put that many of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. That's pretty nuts. It can't be countered, and what it does is an ability that can't be countered unless you're countering an ability. So a lot of times people get that confused. It's like it says, put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. You're not playing them. Those aren't being cast. You can't put that spell back into their hand. That's not how that works. So for 8, that's spicy. It's expensive. But with all the cards, I mean, you pull that in the draft, definitely take that. Because there's plenty of toughness in this set, plenty of +1/+1 counter action. So that's going to have some serious value. I'm going to say A tier. For sure. Alright, and there are so many rares in this set. This is why I'm just doing mythics. But there is plenty of rares that I think are pretty decent, even uncommons, like right here, Eowyn. Oh, and that just happens to be the name of the other card that I was talking about. I'll show you in a second. But Eowyn, beginning of combat, you get vigilance or first strike to a creature. So cool. Alright, let's keep rolling. So many cards in this set. Alright, here we go. Oh, here she is. Eowyn, Fearless Knight. This is the card I was talking about. I'll pull that up for you. Some cool alt artwork here. So, ETB, exile creature an opponent controls with greater power. But then here's the other part. I forgot to mention this. All your legendary creatures, which there are so many, gain protection of that creature's color until end of turn. So you can just swing right in. Very cool. Alright. Tom Bombadil. This is for Wooburg. 4/4. As long as there are 4 more lore counters among sagas you control, it has hexproof and indestructible. Whenever the final chapter ability of a saga you control resolves, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a saga card. Put it onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. It only triggers once a turn. That's kind of cool if you had like a 5-color saga deck. I haven't seen anybody do that, but definitely something you could do. I don't think it's amazing. So 5-drop, 4/4. You need to have lores out. That's D tier. It's requiring so much. Not only is the mana fixing as hard as it can be to try to play that turn 5, it's only a 4/4, and you need to have a bunch of lore counters out among sagas you control just to get the benefit. As long as there are 4 or more lore counters among sagas. Those sagas exile themselves when they're done. So even if you get that to hit, it's only going to be for a turn or 2. So you'd have to line all that up, have none of that get removed. And then, I mean, it does help. It says whenever the final chapter of an ability of a saga you control, reveal cards from the top until you reveal a saga, put it on the battlefield. So it is replenishing sagas, but that's still, I'm going to say that is very specific. You have to dedicate the whole deck to enchantments. And so then you open the door for just the easiest removal. I wouldn't say the easiest, but there's a lot out there that'll get rid of enchantments. And not only that, where's your board state? You play against a token deck or a burn deck, you've already lost. So I get what the card's trying to do. Now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of want to move it up to C tier. Just to be nice, on the off chance that there is some deck out there where this is just amazing. And I guess some of the sagas do create creatures. Nah, I'm keeping it D tier. I'm going to go with the original thought on that one. Aragorn the Uniter. This is one I talked about previously. I pulled it in one of the packs in my videos. This is a cool 4-color card. It's a 4-drop 5/5, very specific mana cost, everything but a swamp. Whenever you cast a white spell, create a 1/1. Whenever you cast a blue spell, scry 2. Whenever you cast a red spell, deals 3 damage to an opponent. And whenever you cast a green spell, target creature gets +4/+4. That's nuts. I mean, if you pull that in a draft, you're going 4 colors. Just because if you hit that, you're creating a board state, ordering your deck to make it easier, burning your opponent easy, and then just the amount of PT gained from green spells. That's amazing. So I'm gonna say A. It's not S. It's too specific CMC, but I will say A tier because there's a lot of value in that. Okay, Saruman of Many Colors. Have not seen this card be played. This is a Esper 6-drop. So 3 colorless and Esper 5/4. It's got ward. You have to discard an enchantment, instant, or sorcery card. So very hard to target. So what else does he do? Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, each opponent mills 2 cards. Whenever one or more cards are milled this way, exile target enchantment, instant, or sorcery card with equal or lesser mana value than that spell from an opponent's graveyard. Copy the exiled card. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Yo, that is a very defensive card. You're definitely going to be playing multiple spells. With the ring temp, you're going to be getting, draw a card, discard a card. You're going through your deck pretty quickly. And with Esper, you're definitely going to draw and control the board enough to make that really worth it. I'm going to say B tier because the CMC is very hard to get to. But it is it's almost A tier. Almost. But B tier. This card is disgusting. I mean, I saw somebody pull this at the pre-release, and they went undefeated. It's a 6-drop Grixis and 3 other. Sacrifice a legendary artifact or legendary creature just to target it. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, amass orcs 1. So if you don't have an army of orcs, you create one, and it's just one creature that swings across. But every time you amass orcs, whatever number, you put that many +1/+1 counters on that army, and it just gets bigger and bigger. So every time you cast a spell, you have to play against a bigger army, unless you have a way to remove that, which is just nuts. But it's got more. So let's keep reading. Whenever an army you control deals combat damage to a player, the ring tempts you. So it's your opponent trying to do anything to you is building an army that then helps you farther. And then it says, whenever the ring tempts you, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw 4 cards. If your hand is 0, you discard 0, you draw 4. So you could mill yourself before beating your opponent, and that might be the only strategy to beat this card. It's a 7/6, doesn't have trample, but it is just creating all kinds of problems. That is definitely an S tier. I mean, it's disgusting. Its specific CMC is the only downside, but it is a 6-drop 7/6, so it's better than vanilla. And not only is it better than vanilla, it's got 4 abilities that are nuts. S tier. And that's just whew, spicy. That is a very spicy card. Arwen Mortal Queen 3-drop 2/2. It is, when it comes into play, it has an indestructible counter, so that's good. 1, remove the counter. Another target creature gains indestructible till end of turn. Put a +1/+1 counter and a lifelink counter on that creature, and a +1/+1 counter and a lifelink counter on Arwen. So she's a 3-drop 2/2, but for 1, you can remove a counter, her indestructible counter, and make something else stronger with lifelink as well as her. That's a very interesting mechanic. I'm going to say its abilities make it just better than vanilla, but that's pretty much it. That's very specific. You need something else to protect. By itself, it's okay. 2/2 indestructible. As long as they don't have trample and it's just one thing. Like, she'll stop an army by herself. That's cool. I like the artwork. I'm going to throw it A tier. I know that's not a good excuse, but I'm going to do that. Alright, let's keep moving. Aragorn and Arwen Wed. This is a 6-drop 3/6 Vigilance. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. You gain 1 life for each other creature you control. If you have that in a draft, I'm telling you, that is nuts. 3/6 is meh, but it's got Vigilance and it does a whole bunch of other work. I'm gonna say S tier. Like, I think that's S tier. The CMC sucks. But ETB or attack. So the toughness makes it really hard to get rid of. Put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. You'll have to find a way to protect this card. But that's with any good card. So I want to say S tier. It's either S or A. It's not a B tier. That CMC is terrible. I'm going to go S. Alright, moving along. Sauron the Lidless Eye. I don't think it's going to be better than that other Sauron card. There's a lot of cards here that have the same name, but just a different look on each one. I'm not sure what that's about really, but I mean, let's see. 5-drop. ETB, gain control of target creature and opponent controls until end of turn. Untap, it gains haste. Okay, I mean, if you can find a way to blink it, that's cool. For 3 pumpable, it's Rakdos and 1 other. Creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. Each opponent loses 2 life. So, if you're playing a Rakdos deck, by the time you play it, the next turn they can lose 4 life a turn. It does put your opponent on a clock. If they have an army, like an orc army, and you take it and swing with it, that's pretty strong. For a 5-drop 4/4 with that, I mean, it's okay. I'm going to say B tier. Because the ETB is just a one-time thing. And creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. That's fine. But it's not helping their toughness. So, like, if you were to do that against an opponent while you're about to swing, they would easily be able to still trade. It's not like you're pulling away what they thought they were going to block by doing that. So I'm going to say B tier. Aragorn, Company Leader. This is a 3-drop. Whenever the ring tempts you, if you choose a creature other than this, as your ring bearer, put a choice counter from First Strike, Vigilance, Death Touch, or Lifelink on Aragorn. Whenever you put 1 or more counters on Aragorn, put 1 of each of those kinds of counters on up to 1 other target creature. That's pretty good. 3-drop, 3/3, passes vanilla. Whenever the ring tempts you, put a counter on it. And whenever you do that, put a counter on something else. That might be S tier. But ring temp is not, it's not just given to you. You have to build that into your deck. You have to be looking for those to try to get that to happen. So we'll go A tier. Oh, I'm sorry. That's a rare. My mistake. So I was like, where is it? I don't have it here. So now we'll keep rolling down to the artifacts and the lands. Okay, the One Ring, 4-drop. Indestructible. ETB. If you cast it, so you can't just put this onto the battlefield, you have to cast it. Gain protection from everything until your next turn. It's good for a turn. So that means protection from everything. Protection, you want to think debt as the acronym, I believe. It's can't be dealt damage, can't be enchanted, can't be blocked, can't be targeted. So they could swing you with all their creatures would be tapped and they would do no damage to you. They can't target you with burn spells, they can't enchant the player, they can't do any of that. So that's kind of a good 1-turn hold, stop right there, can't touch me, kind of thing. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burden counter on the One Ring. Tap, put a burden counter on the one ring, draw a card for each burden counter on the one ring. That's pretty good. I have a feeling people are going to play that like crazy in Commander. I mean, it's good and it's not good. It's good for a turn 4 legendary artifact that you have to cast it. You can't cheat it onto the battlefield. So that makes it less valuable. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burden counter on it. There's plenty of life gain. It does help you draw, and I do like that, you draw 1 this turn, you draw 2 next turn, you draw 3 next turn. Yeah, I'm going to say, I mean, I kind of want to say C tier, but I'm going to go B tier, because I know some people are going to be like, what are you talking about? That's so good. It's not that. It's okay. Anduriel, Flame of the West, 3-drop. Equipped creature gets +3/+1. Whenever it attacks, create 2 tapped 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying. If that creature is legendary, instead create 2 of the tokens that. Wait a minute. It says whenever equipped creature attacks, create 2 tapped 1/1s with flying. If it's a legendary, when it attacks, create 2 of those tokens that are tapped and attacking. Does it not say whenever it attacks, create 2 tapped 1/1s? So, equipped creature attacks. If it's not legendary, create 2 tapped 1/1 spirit creature tokens with flying. If the creature is legendary that's swinging, instead create 2 of those tokens that are tapped and attacking. Is it trying to, like, if it's legendary, it's not talking about the creature itself, because then you just have to sack them. This card is weird. I'm going to say C tier. +3/+1 for 3. Cool. Equip 2. It's not a dangerous equip cost. But the wording there does not make sense to me. Looks like it doesn't make a difference if it's legendary or not legendary that you equip. C tier. Next, let's see. What is this? This is Glamdring, 2-drop, 3 equip. Equipped creature has first strike and gets +1/+0 for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. That's pretty good. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to the damage without paying its mana cost. That's really good. That's very good. That's almost S tier. Let me think about that. Equipped creature has to deal combat damage to a player, so if you put that on a flyer, that's an easy 4 damage. Play a 4 CMC without paying its mana cost. That's very good. I'm going to say S tier. This is Planeteer of Orthanc. 3-drop legendary artifact. At the beginning of your end step, put an influence counter on this, and scry 2. Target opponent may have you draw a card. If they don't, you mill X cards, where X is the number of influence counters on it, and the player loses life equal to the total mana value of those cards. That's so cheesy. They're just going to make you scry 2. Or wait, I mean, they're just going to make you draw a card. Target opponent may have you draw a card. If they don't, you mill X cards, where X is the influence counters on it. Huh. Okay. So even 1 turn, you're just hoping for them to mill lands. But if they 2 turns from that, it's only at turn 3 that you play it. That's pretty good. I'm going to say B tier. You have to find a way to use that. But that's a B tier. Okay. Legendary land here. This is the last one. Mount Doom. It's a legendary land. You can tap to pay 1 life. Add a swamp or a mountain to your mana pool. For 1 colorless and Rakdos, Mount Doom deals 1, and you have to tap it. Mount Doom deals 1 damage to each opponent. So you're spending 4 mana while you're tapping this land, so not using that mana, and 3 other mana just to deal 1 damage. Meh. That's not good. But let's see what the other one is. 5 and Rakdos, so 7-drop tap. So you need 8 mana to swing this over. sacrifice it and a legendary artifact, choose up to 2 creatures, then destroy the rest. Interesting. Very interesting. As far as a late game, you're probably going to have a board state. I don't know if you'll have a legendary artifact. If you're using equipments, you could. And so you'd have to sack that legendary equipment. You'd have to sack this land. That would put you back down to 7 mana. Choose 2 creatures, destroy the rest. That's a late game get in there. But that's so specific. And then it hurts you every step of the way just to use it. 4 mana. Well, it's 3 and tap this. So you're using 4 potential mana producing lands. And like the easiest possible way to do this without creatures giving you mana or anything like that. To deal 1 damage to each opponent. So maybe in a multiplayer game you actually get value out of that, but just one-on-one, you're not getting value out of that. That's terrible. I'm going to say that's a C tier. It's not a D tier because that much removal, even that late in the game, I'm going to say that's okay. But C tier for sure. Not a fan. That does not look like it's worth it. I don't even know why they made that mythic. I mean, I guess because it's a land and it does it, that's cool. But aside from that, I don't think it's too crazy. That's it for all the Mythic Rares in Tales of Middle-earth for the new Lord of the Rings set. Let me know which cards you like the most. If you think I put them in the wrong tier, let me know. Throw it in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, until next time, keep it easy.